Okay, guys, thanks for tuning in to another video. I was just perusing the interweb and found this interesting headline here from my friendly Bounding Into Comics. Rebel Moon director Zack Snyder describes Star Wars as immobile and implies it's due to how canonized it is. Just looking at that without knowing the full context sounds a little bit off, especially considering a guy is trying to create sort of a massive universe along the same lines. He's intending to do. They got the 2 films already shot that are coming out. Rebel Moon films, one in December, then another one in April. He's said they're developing a video game already. There's a whole bunch of novels they're going to be doing. So for a guy who's trying to sort of create a sci-fi universe, the likes of a Star Wars, it's a little weird to me that he would make that kind of a comment. While promoting the upcoming Netflix film with Den of Geek, Snyder briefly discussed how the film evolved out of a pitch he previously gave for a Star Wars film. Yes, exactly. First, he touted how dominant Star Wars became and how love for the franchise was passed down from generation to generation. Star Wars fan base basically aged with the movies, and then they had children that then also became fans of the movies, and their children had children who became fans of the movies. He then claimed the franchise is immobile due to how canonized it is and contrasted that with Rebel Moon. I do understand the love of Star Wars, how canonized it is, and actually how immobile it is. That's why I'm here doing Rebel Moon the way I'm doing it, because we really have no rules except for the ones we make. Well, yeah, but then once you make those rules, you have to stick to those rules. We're going to do it the way I'm doing it, and we'll have no rules. Well, once you do it, you'll have rules. So this is a weird comment. Snyder made near identical comments to IGN. I don't think you can make a sci-fi movie now that's not going to compare to a Star Wars movie in some way. And I do welcome it, and I'm happy to discuss its place or where it will end up in popular culture in regards to the legacy of Star Wars. Again, I disagree with that. You can make sci-fi movies that are not compared to Star Wars. Nobody compared Event Horizon in the 90s to Star Wars. Nobody compared that. Like even Trekkies and Star Wars fans don't generally compare them as if they're somehow similar, because they're not. They're totally different. They're both sci-fi, but they're very, very different. So that's a weird comment too. I don't get that. Of course you can make a sci-fi movie that's not going to be compared to Star Wars. He continued, it's a rare thing because the Star Wars fan base basically aged with the movies and they had children, also the children. Yeah, we already heard that. I understand the love of it and how canonized it is and actually how immobile it is, which is probably why I'm here doing... Okay, yeah, we get that. I'm doing it my way. He also previously commented on the state of Star Wars back in 2021 during a live stream on the Film Junkie YouTube channel. He was asked, if you were ever approached to do Star Wars, is there a certain story that you had in mind, in your head, kind of like, I want to do that in the Star Wars world? And Snyder responded, I've probably gone over this a little bit in the past. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. The reason why I started making movies when I was 11 years old is because of Star Wars. For sure, has been a huge influence on me and really got me onto this mythic past, sort of the Joseph Campbellian take on archetypes and storytelling. Star Wars is that to me. I have interest in Star Wars. I don't think I have a story right now. Snyder said, I don't know how I would fit into the Star Wars universe anymore. I don't know what it is. It's a thing I love, but I don't know if maybe it's moved on from me. I still love it, and I have lightsabers everywhere in the house, he concluded. That sounds like he just hated the sequels. This is what, 2021 it said? Yeah, 2021. So this is right after... Not right after, but Rise of Skywalker had finished. The sequels were done. I think they were just starting to come out with shows. I think maybe Mando at the first season. And he says, I have interest in it. I don't think I have a story right now. I don't know how I would fit into this uniform. I don't know what it is. Well, that's right. And that's because they didn't follow canon. They haven't been following it. They've been breaking their own rules. They've been doing all types of silly, dumb things that don't make any sense. They've been writing stories that don't line up properly. Characters contradicting themselves. Characters just becoming totally weird and nothing like themselves. Luke, whoever. Turning Boba Fett into a joke. Into some comical loser. So it's a thing that I love, but I don't know if maybe it's moved on from me. And I feel the same way in a lot of ways in that respect. It's unclear what Snyder means by describing Star Wars as immobile. It's possible that he's referring to the Walt Disney Company and their insistence on seemingly only telling stories surrounding the time frame of George Lucas's original films when it comes to theatrical release. Well, of course they're going to do that because those are the films everybody loves. So, of course, they stick in that timeline. And they don't have the sack to try something completely new. They don't have the balls. Even High Republic, right? It finishes and leads into the prequels. They are way too scared to do anything that is totally separate from George's time. And you could argue High Republic maybe, but even there, when they started it, it was very popular, and now the new books hardly sell anything. So they didn't do a very good job of that. But of course they're gonna nostalgia bait everybody with George's timeline, and they're messing up George's timeline. It's ridiculous. As for the idea that the series cannot move because of its canon, that also makes no sense, given that the Walt Disney Company constantly breaks the canon of Lucas's original films and has no qualms breaking their own canon. Exactly. In fact, Dave Filoni dismissed the idea of canon in a recent interview, attempting to hype up the Ahsoka series at Star Wars Celebration. He told Screen Rant, "People go into all these debates of what's canon, what's not, and sometimes forget just the special nature of telling a good story and creating great characters." No, Dave, that's the point. That's the point. These characters have to follow the rules of the universe if they're in that universe. If you want to make a whole new universe like Zack Snyder's doing with Rebel Moon, then you can create whatever you want to create. But if you're going to be inside a universe that has rules, you can't have holdo maneuvers. You just can't. You can't have people that just know how to do every single Jedi trick and every single thing without any training. You can't, because George Lucas said specifically you need training. And then you break your own canon in Mandalorian where Luke says that Grogu needs training. Even though Grogu was like Rey and could already do tons of Force stuff people never even heard of. He could do Force healing. Somehow we learned that when he was at the temple. Anakin was at the temple. Who knew Force healing? Why didn't they tell Anakin so he didn't kill everybody? Save his wife. Why didn't Obi-Wan get the guy? Whoever the Jedi Master was that taught Grogu healing. What's going on? Why didn't Luke learn healing? Because apparently Rey learned healing from the Jedi texts. Why didn't he learn healing and then go and touch Ben and turn him from the dark side? Why did he go through that whole thing and let Ben kill everybody when he had those books and he could have learned it? See, there's so many stupid things when you don't follow canon. Part of the fan debate in the past always used to be what's canon, what's not, because there was George, and we always knew George was the canon. I look at it very broadly and just say there's just a love of Star Wars because I knew George, I worked with him, none of us are going to be with him, or are going to be him, but we love the galaxy he created, and we were very much a product of it growing up with it. Really? Are you sure? Are you sure, Dave? Because you have bastardized it. So I don't think you care at all. And I think this whole notion that Freddie Prinze Jr. pushes and all the stuff that Dave Filoni was George's protege and all this stuff, I don't think Dave Filoni ever saw himself that way. I think he saw himself as, hey, I'm going to take this and do whatever I feel like with it, which is what he's done. In fact, the canon of it all is what makes Star Wars so compelling for the viewers. Exactly. It doesn't feel real when you break rules all the time. Lucas was able to bring millions of people into a secondary world and they become fully immersed in it. Exactly. The Lord of the Rings. Tolkien discussed this in an essay on fairy tale writing. What really happens is that the storymaker proves a successful sub-creator. He makes a secondary world in which your mind can enter. Inside it, what he relates is true. It accords with the laws of that world. You therefore believe it while you are, as it were, inside. Well said, J.R. Tolkien. However, he notes this can all come crumbling down the moment disbelief arises. The spell is broken. The magic, or art rather, has failed. This is fantastic. Whoever wrote this article, good job. You are then out in the primary world again, looking at the little abortive secondary world from the outside. If you are obliged by kindliness or circumstance to say, then disbelief must be suspended or stifled. Otherwise, listening and looking would become intolerable. But this suspension of disbelief is a substitute for the genuine thing, a subterfuge we use when condescending to games or make-believe, or when trying more or less willingly to find what virtue we can in the work of an art that has for us failed. I've literally had people on Twitter say to me, what does suspend disbelief mean? It comes from one of the best writers of all time. And he's right. You know, as soon as you start breaking rules, like if you stick a lightsaber through somebody and it's been killing them the whole time, and then all of a sudden, now, in the middle of the timeline, you do it and they don't die, that takes me right out of it. At that point, I'm not immersed in the world anymore. And I don't know how people can be when they break these rules like this. I don't know how you can be immersed in it. The sequels prove that. People were not immersed in the sequels, right? When they changed Luke's character, when Rey was just way too powerful, never trained, nothing, it went against the previous situation where we were believing that we were in a universe where you had to be told and shown how to use the Force in those ways, and you couldn't just do it on your own. And when she just did it on her own, now all of a sudden I'm out of it. I'm like, well, okay, now what am I even watching here? This isn't even the same universe. It's something else. It has the Star Wars logo, but it's just something else. I think it's very easy to see that by breaking the canon of Star Wars does indeed result in numerous people exiting the sub-creation of the secondary world, and there is indeed quite a bit of canon to Star Wars. But that does not make the property immobile. It's definitely quite possible to still tell compelling, interesting, and immersive stories within the world Lucas created. 100%. It just takes dedication, discipline, creativity, and more to get it done. If one is willing to put in the effort, something the Walt Disney Company has not done, it's not hard to see why Snyder would describe it as immobile. Yeah, he's basically just giving them an excuse for their laziness. And it's not even just laziness. When Kathleen Kennedy stands up and announces like 15 projects in like a 3-year period for Star Wars, how are you going to do those with any quality? There were years between the films. It took them years to make them, in the OT. Huge amounts of time and dedication. And in that era, of course, with the special effects and everything, they had to create stuff out of thin air that had never been done. Huge amount of effort. When you're saying you're going to do 15 projects, well, now you got to hire all these people. Now all of a sudden, you're getting, on the 15th project, you're getting the 15th best director you can. You're getting the, 15th best musical score you can get, because all the guys above them are all working on other stuff, right? So you end up with people like Leslie Headland doing a Star Wars show? Really? Leslie Headland doing a Star Wars show. They're not putting the effort in. And as somebody who rewrote the sequels, used footage from the sequels, I watched them and I went, oh my gosh, if you just put these in a different order and changed the lines and changed the story, but used a lot of these scenes, wow, they could have made a completely different story here. What were they thinking? I did that. But that was a 3-year project between the writing of it, the rearranging of it, changing it enough to get it past copyright, right? Because you have to transform enough to do so. And doing it all with a pretty rudimentary video editing program, because I don't have a lot of money. I couldn't go buy something more expensive, like Final Cut or something like that. I did it, and the story makes sense, and it doesn't break lore at all, in any way, shape, or form. It's not hard. There's not a single thing in there that breaks lore, and it makes perfect sense what's going on. You can tell what's happening. You're not confused. But they don't put any effort in. And so what I think of Snyder's comments, I think he's basically just giving them a pass. He's basically giving the people at Lucasfilm a pass, which surprises me. If I was him, they rejected my thing, I'm making my own thing, I'm competing, I'd be mocking them. I'd be like, they should have been able to make a bunch of amazing stuff, and I'm out of it now because they don't, because they make crap. That's what I would have said if I was him. But whatever, he's taking the high road, and he's being nice, and, he's trying to be nice to people, and maybe his dream is still to eventually make a Star Wars project, so he doesn't want to badmouth anything. But he's basically just giving them an excuse. It's canonized just fine. There's nothing wrong with it. You just can't be an idiot and do things that are dumb, because that just makes people mad. It's not hard. All you had to do was have Shin and Sabine fight, for example, in that particular scene where she stabs her. You could have just had them fight, and she doesn't end up stabbing her because Ahsoka shows up and she runs away because she knows Ahsoka's stronger than her. That's all you had to do. All you had to do. Just don't stab her. Done. You could have done all the scenes exactly the same. You didn't have to change anything other than just not having her get stabbed. You could have had them still wake up the next day and discuss things and go through the whole process of what they're going to do. Everything could have been the same without her getting stabbed. Or you could have just had them not fight at all because Shin didn't need to fight her. And if she was trying to kill her, she did a pretty crappy job, right? She's trained. She should know how to kill somebody, right? So the whole thing is nonsense. So there was absolutely no reason for it. But they just did it anyway. So, anyways, Zack Snyder's just basically being a nice guy and giving them an excuse. What do you guys think in the comment section? Do you agree with me, disagree with me? What do you think of Snyder's comments and Filoni's comments from this article? And thank you for watching. Please check out any of my other Star Wars content. And if you enjoy this content and if you like my channel, it'd be really nice if you could subscribe, like my stuff, and have a good day, guys.